Sometimes I'll see an article or an essay or something that really gives me a perspective on something, and that was the case in an article I saw this morning over at Town Hall from our friend Kurt Schlichter, who's as fun to talk to as he is to read. And his article called Overdosing on Wokium. Now, in this particular case, it wasn't so much the article, although it was excellent as usual, was a particular phrase that he used in one of the paragraphs in the article, and this is the exact paragraph. I'll read it for you verbatim here. Woke addicts know that men can transform into women and back from the power of wanting, and the junkies revel in the ecstasy of victory over mere reality by accepting that many men menstruate. If your average citizen out there, your average young person or whatever, has a narrative of wanting something here on the left with the whole social justice thing, what's the counter narrative? What's the other story? What's the conservative story? What's the pro-American story? What's the patriotic story? What do we want? And how do we promote it? And how do we show people that it's something worth having? And as far as I can see, in terms of the larger pop culture, it's essentially non-existent. Now, I can give you an example of what I'm talking about. It's an example I'm not particularly proud of, but I'm going to tell you about it anyway. It happened just this past weekend. My wife Natasha and I have been catching up or binge watching on a show that's actually been over for just a little while now. It came out, almost started up 7-8 years ago. It's called Vikings, and it's about Vikings. But one of the characters in Vikings is a Viking shaman named Floki. And he is the living embodiment of dedication to the Viking gods. He murders Christians with absolute impunity. He kills innocent Christian priests, major character in the show. Floki is basically Viking mythology incorporated into one person. He is the essence of the gods of the Vikings. And we were watching an episode the other night on the weekend. And in this episode, they sail to Spain, and they get a chance to first investigate their first Muslim port. And they come into the city and they do what Vikings do, which is immediately start murdering people. But they get inside a mosque, and once inside a mosque, they find that everyone there is bent over in prayer. Not a single person crying, not one person wailing, not one person afraid. Everybody deep, deep, deep in their prayers. Floki, the god of murder and Viking mayhem, basically says, no, do not kill these people. You'll have to kill me before you kill these Muslims who are praying. So I saw this guy who was the epitome of Viking murderousness and the Viking gods, basically saying, no, we can't kill these people. These people have a special belief, these Muslims. And I stopped the show, I paused it, and I got up and I said to my wife, that's it, I'm done. And I walked into the kitchen and I looked around in the kitchen and I made sure that there were no cats there or anything like that. And I think this analysis of the situation took me about a second or so. And then, without really even fully being aware of it, I took the solid glass beaker I had and I threw it at the sink as hard as I could. And it went off like a glass hand grenade. It didn't just crack, it exploded. Put a decent chip in the sink, and the glass got into the garbage disposal, and that's locked that up or ruined it. That's something I'm going to have to pay for that temper tantrum. I threw that heavy glass beaker against the far wall of the kitchen as hard as I could. That's how angry that scene made me. And now we get to the point of all this, and how it ties back into wokeness and overdosing on wokeism and all the rest of it. How can you expect people to come around to your way of thinking when everything that they see and hear in the pop culture is all about one side's ongoing battle for an ideological objective, when our ideological objective is essentially don't do that? I mean, if you were to take the modern patriotic American response to what's going on in the world today, it probably could best be summed up by leave us alone. I mean, honestly, that's mostly what I talk about, is leave us alone. We don't want to be taxed. We don't want to be regulated. We don't want you to tell us what to do. We want free speech, all of it. It's all defensive. All of it. It's all defensive. It's all simply putting up a shield and trying to hold a line and being pushed backward and backward and backward by people who have a clear agenda, who deeply believe in that agenda, and who want it more. Our team has not shown up on the field, in the cultural battlefield, we're simply not present. Forget about being outnumbered or being weaker. We're just not there. We're not on the field. What America is right now, I'm speaking about the pop culture now. Right now, America is a recruiting office with no posters on the wall. That's really what it is. Andrew Breitbart and I were pretty close friends, and I think about him quite a lot these days. And he famously coined the expression, as we sat there with groups of conservatives in the show business sphere, was Andrew who said that politics is downstream of culture. If you've got a culture that does nothing but promote wokeism, and there is no counter narrative, then you're going to have a woke culture. If you've ever sat here and looked around and said, why are things going to hell? And why are they going to hell so fast? And why don't we fight back? Why aren't we fighting back? The answer, whether you like it or not, has got nothing to do with politics. It has everything to do with the culture. It has everything to do with the story. Where's the mythology? Where is the mythology? Where's the belief system? Where are the heroes? Where are the stories? Where's the pitch? Where's the pitch? If you're pitching freedom, if you're pitching independence, if you're pitching self-reliance, if you're pitching capitalism, if you're pitching all of it, where is the pitch in the pop culture? It doesn't exist. So what does that do in terms of the solution? Well, I have seen people spend great amounts of money and time making fan films for both Star Trek and Star Wars. I saw one from Czechoslovakia the other day. I've seen them from Turkey. I've seen them from Africa. And there was something about Star Trek that made people want to join that team. There was a message there that was a recruitment. There was something there. The power of wanting was there in the original Star Trek. And the original Star Trek was selling pretty simple stuff, really. The entire idea of Star Trek was basically saying, look, here's the bridge of the Enterprise. We can all live together, different races and sexes and so on, without the prejudice of the past. We can explore. We can advance technologically. We can meet other civilizations and meet them with our confidence. We're going to meet them to shake their hands. We're going to discover brave new worlds. We're going to boldly go places where no one's gone before. That's a story to believe in. That's something people want. Everybody wants something. The human being desires, not only desires, the human being needs to believe in something greater than itself, greater than the individual. Everybody needs to believe in that. And when you had something like Star Trek, you had a movement that changed the world, that literally affected now billions of people. That's no exaggeration. Billions of people affected by that message wanted to be a part of it. Fast forward 10 years, and what do you have? You have Star Wars. Well, what's the message of Star Wars? Well, the message of Star Wars, despite all the explosions and the fighting and all the rest of the CG stuff, is essentially this. There is a force of good in the world. They're called the Jedi. And there's a force of evil in the world. They're called the Sith. And you have to make up your mind. If you want to be on a team, you've got to decide which team you want to be on. And it's no mystery that for years, people in Great Britain, I think somebody said that Jedi was like the third most popular form of religious identification in the world. Again, billions of people affected by this because Star Wars, like Star Trek, gave people something to believe in. It met the desire for wanting to believe in something. It had the power of wanting behind it. Now, the left has destroyed Star Trek and Star Wars, utterly destroyed it by injecting their values of social justice and wokeism into those things and poisoned them and basically withered them away. Things like racial cooperation, an optimistic future, a free future. It's poisoned the idea of right and wrong. There is no good and bad anymore. There's only differences of opinion of where you happen to be. All of these things that people's souls are burning for, all of the things that every human being is constructed to want to have, and that is a fundamental belief in something important. All of those avenues of belief on our side have been either eliminated, destroyed, poisoned, or basically just strangled in the cradle. And the left-wing story continues. The left-wing story gets stronger and stronger, and we see it everywhere. And so the Vikings now become an entire group of women warriors who will murder anybody on the earth so long as they're not Muslims, because those people have a special religion, a special belief. And that's what made me angry enough to throw that glass against the wall and shatter it. Not so much that it was happening in this show, but because there was no counter narrative. There was nothing to oppose it. If we think that we can have a belief system that survives this current generation dying out, then we're going to have to do some things pretty differently. If you tell people that everything that you believe in is 250 years in the past, and up against that you've got an ongoing perpetual drumbeat of no, the future consists of seeing how woke we can become, then you lose the fight because you don't show up. And I am no longer willing to do that. So I've mentioned this several times on the Stratosphere Lounge. I might as well just mention it now because I'm going to continue to be working on it. I'm working on a series. I'm working on a pilot for a TV series that is going to be set in the future. And basically what it is going to do is it's going to tell the story of America, and it's going to tell it in the future. It's going to tell three fundamental storylines. It's going to tell the exploration storyline, the idea of exploring worlds, seeing things that have never been seen before, absolute mind-boggling discoveries, and the excitement and the enchantment of a world that has not been mapped to the square meter and patrolled by communications and GPS satellites. The idea of the unknown. That's one thing. The second storyline is going to be how do you defend a pristine new world, a chance for people to become new people together, people from all around the world, all around the universe, getting together in this new place and deciding that they're going to band together, become new people, leave their old prejudices behind, and work together to overthrow the most powerful military force on the planet. How do you tell that story? How do you tell the story of John Paul Jones and the Continental Navy? How do you tell the story of George Washington and a group of starving, tattered, brave, and badly outnumbered people desperately clinging to an idea and just hanging on through the sheer faith that what they believed in was important enough to fight and die for? And the third storyline is the story of the entire settlement of the West. What would make people leave a city and their family in Ireland or Russia or Germany or England or wherever? What would make a family get up, take everything they have in the world, their small little bundle of possessions, sell it all, get on a ship, and go across the world to some place they've never seen before, and then get in a wagon and head west and basically put down a stake in the middle of nowhere and hope that they could defend themselves against Indians and wolves and freezing and starvation and all the rest, and have to depend on each other? What would cause somebody to do that? Well, these are ideas that we're going to explore. We're not going to make it old history. We're not going to make it Westerns. We're going to make it something that's in the future, because my personal belief is that the ideas of America are eternal. And I want the power of wanting. I want people to see something and say, I want to be a part of that. I want to be a part of that. That's important. That's cool. That's meaningful. That has purpose. That's worth fighting for. That's worth dying for. The one thing that I believe in the bottom of my heart is that the story that we believe in is the story that people want to believe in. That the story of all of these things, freedom, individuality, courage, honor, loyalty, responsibility, shared sacrifice, independence, all of it. These are things that people want to believe in. And we have to harness the power of wanting and put a message out there that makes it very clear what it is that we believe in. And that is more important than anything else on the board, no matter what you may think about it. Because people don't vote based on what they think. They vote based on what they feel. And if we can do that, we can change the world.